We are here now with Hall of Famer. I don't need to say future. I don't need to say pending. Hall of Famer Isaac Bruce, Sims and Lefkoe. I don't know if you even know what this is, but this is a place where you can say whatever the fuck you want.
Okay.
Cursing is allowed. Real talk is allowed.
Oh, yeah. This is a trust tree.
Well, you guys are safe with me. because.
I appreciate you very much. So you're here just because Steven Nelson hooked this up, and I want to say shout out to Steven _Nelson on Twitter. He is the man for doing this. It's fascinating to me that we talk about athletes all the time. You guys go through your whole career, and it's you're amazing, you're amazing, you're amazing. And then there's this process where it's like, but we're not sure how amazing you are.
Right.
You retired second all time. Was it yards or catches?
Yards.
Yards.
Yeah.
You were part of some of the greatest teams of all time.
Correct. I'm in the 1,000 reception club.
Yes.
Yeah, pub yourself. Feel free to do it.
These are facts.
Yeah,
these
are facts.
But it's just facts.
Yes.
I mean, when I retired, I was close to 100 touchdowns, career touchdown reception. But when I like to factor in the big one in Super Bowl 34. That's got to be at least 15.
Hey,
that one catch. Is
I was there.
15, so.
I was there.
Were you really?
I was sitting in the stands.
Now, but my thing is what is it like for your entire life for people to tell you how incredible you are, and then all of a sudden there's this part where people go, well, we need to evaluate this a little bit further.
Well, it's different, and it's important that you always have your own identity of what type of player you are, because you have those valleys. At times when you're drafted and after you're drafted, everybody's scrutinizing the place where you're drafted, the impact that you're going to make on the team.
Yeah.
And from there, once you retire, when you're being scrutinized to get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, they kind of nitpick and chisel and see what you did do or what you didn't do. So it's kind of the same. So I always wanted to have my own identity about who I was.
You seem to know who you are, though.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you get frustrated with the process? Because I'll just say this. I'm going to put it out there. I get frustrated with the whole Hall of Fame thing.
Okay.
I don't like it.
Okay.
My dad is somewhat in the same boat as you. I mean, he retired, and he was at the top of a lot of lists now. And, of course, the numbers and the offensive, the way it's gone in football, the numbers have exploded. So people like you sometimes can get lost in the shuffle, even though your numbers are actually still right up there with the exactly.
I mean, they're staring you right in the face.
Yes.
I mean, you can't get away from it. And then when you're just looking at the body of work, see, a lot of people seem to think that it's Isaac Bruce versus another wide receiver.
Right.
It's not. It's probably me versus Tony Baselli.
Yes.
And things of that nature.
Yes.
But at the same time, what I did on the football field, it's no more can be done. So I'm done with it. But as far as frustration, not really, because they talk about, this log jam at wide receiver.
Yes.
I never put myself in that log jam
Right.
because I'm different.
Right.
I mean, you look at my stats, look at the postseason play and what happened. It makes me different from those other guys.
It does. And all right, so this is just my problem. I don't even want you to comment this because you might not get the votes if they hear you say it. But, it drives me crazy, first of all, that the media gets full outright on Hall of Fame careers. I mean, I go into a press box in an NFL football game, and there's guys writing an article. Oh, there's a big play. Oh, let me see what happened. Oh, let me tweet that out. Great play. And now he's an expert on what happened in the game.
True.
And
so
then,
that drives me crazy.
Did I have a good relationship with Isaac
That
Bruce?
goes
Why
into
does
it
that
too.
factor in?
Or did I have a relationship?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
People are voting and they've never even met you, and they're exactly.
Right. So you are totally justified to be a Hall of Famer, hands down, okay? And the thing I like about your career more than anything is you were balling before the greatest show on turf. That's the thing that I think they think that, you just came about when you started winning Super Bowls and getting to the Super Bowl.
He
and all
was
that
wearing those old jerseys.
His
with
best
the yellow
year
and the
was
blue.
with Chris Miller as his quarterback,
Thank
okay?
you. Thank
So
you.
1995 was his best year of your career. It speaks to your talent, your longevity, everything you did. Also, all right, so this is do you feel like you get lost in the shuffle because of some of the greatness on your offensive team at times too?
That's
just
the
because
weird
of
thing with
fall off?
Orlando Pace
Right.
and everybody.
Not at all. I mean, we had a great team, we had a great group of guys playing on offense, kind of like you mentioned. Before I met all of those guys, probably except Marshall, I was already a Pro Pro Bowler.
Yeah,
I was a Pro Bowler already.
Yes, right.
So I saw every one of those guys come in. I remember drafting Big O. I remember drafting T. Hope.
Right.
I remember Kurt Warner coming, being signed and making a trade for Marshall. So, I mean, I was there to see it all, but at the same time, we all needed each other. We fed off each other. We played well with each other. I used to call myself the number one decoy when I was being a decoy, and I was the number one wide receiver when I was getting the football.
Yeah,
so that's the way I looked at it.
Yeah,
it was so. I watched the America's Game, or the story of the greatest show on turf, and it talked about how you were there and you never got that win, and then it meant so much for you to get that win. But for me, the craziest part was to know that you were actually injured for the Super Bowl, or was it the NFC Championship game?
The divisional round.
The divisional round.
The divisional round versus the Vikings.
the Vikings.
So you're getting ready to play the Vikings, and what did you do to your leg?
I pulled my hamstring in pregame, and it's funny because I came in my second year. I had this huge season, well over 1,700 yards receiving. Next year, I led the league in receiving yards, and then the following year, I started having these hamstring issues. So it went on for 2 seasons straight. Right. So coming into the 1999 season, no one expected us to really do anything,
right?
As a team,
right?
And we started on a roll, 5-0, 6-0.
Especially when Trent Green went down.
Absolutely. We were all devastated, but. I was walking past the television and watching one of these guys like you just mentioned, who probably types for a living.
Yeah.
He says, well, isn't it time for the Rams to implode? Isn't it time for Isaac Bruce to pull a hamstring? And that kind of sat down in me, and I was like, whoa, okay. Yeah. So me being me, the whole entire pregame before that playoff game, I say, okay, I'm not doing anything. Right. I'm not going to run. I'm not going to stretch or do anything. I go to make one stretch, and my hamstring pops.
Man,
what does it feel like when a hamstring pops? Is it like right away?
Oh, right away. You can hear it. You can feel it. It's one of the most painful things, but you look okay. Yes. I mean, as you know, you've thrown a lot of receivers, and
I semi-pulled my hamstring once. I'm not really fast enough to fully pull it, so you have to be fast to pull a hamstring.
It's pain, man.
Well, the story is that the first play was designed for you. What was a deep post?
Since that Thursday.
They were talking all week. We're going on a deep post to Isaac Bruce. Everyone knows it, and you were like, "I'm not telling anybody that I popped my hamstring."
No, the great mind Mike Martz had put it together. He had peeped it out, versus the Vikings. Vikings set it up perfectly. I was in a slot. T.O. was outside. And, as I'm walking in the locker room before the game started, I just gingerly walk by the head trainer. I didn't want to give him eye contact. Right. And, those guys go nuts. And, what's going on? It goes from him to the head coach and then to the media. Then everybody's upset. Right. So I kind of walk in the locker room. I call my sister up, man, and we pray. I believe in the power of prayer.
Sure.
So we get on, and I'm gingerly walking. The Vikings got the ball first. They take it down the field. And they had a good offense that year, too. Yes, they did. And, they kick the field goal, but, it's probably 7 minutes left in the first quarter before we get on the field.
Damn.
And I'm standing in the slot, hamstring pull. And by the time I took off, man, it was supernatural, man. I mean, I outran everybody.
Yes.
That playoff adrenaline.
Absolutely.
It was like a 60, 70-yard touchdown?
70-yard touchdown, first playoff game ever in the city of St. Louis.
What did it feel like to run on that?
I didn't feel it, man.
Really?
Honestly, I didn't feel it. And I had pulled hamstrings, the two years previous to the 99 season. And,
wow.
And, man, it was amazing.
That's just the structure of the leg.
Watching that game.
If it's popped and you're still able to run.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
All right, so wait, I always like to ask these kind of questions, right? Just to, I'm a historian and grew up in the game, right? So I'd like to know, first of all, toughest guy you ever had to go against DB-wise that you just thought, man, this guy is a handful man-to-man.
Well, I'd say this. I always have to describe the guy.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, it's like it's a guy who really did his homework. He studied me.
Right.
He studied the splits.
Yep.
The things I like to do in press coverage. What I do versus a man that tries to get his hands on me, or a guy that just kind of shadowed me down the field. So the guy that did that the best was Aeneas Williams.
I knew you were going to say that.
When we played him, he was smart,
because
man,
he understood all the offense and what it was trying to do.
Absolutely. So, he could read formations and be in your way, really. And that's what made him one of the best.
And then you got to be his teammate at the end of the career, too.
Yeah,
what about defense? What was the toughest defense you went against where you were just like, wow, these guys are for real? Because you had the NFC Championship game against that great Bucs defense, of course.
It was like
that was one.
Yeah.
That was one. I mean, they were technically sound. They were everywhere.
Never played you man-to-man, just Tampa 2.
Absolutely.
Right.
And no one really broke down. They never got out of position.
Right.
They were always there.
Their front four could get to the quarterback.
Absolutely.
Right.
And they did that. They did that well. But I'd have to say another defense would have to be they'd have to have not only did their homework, but also kind of crossed the line a little bit. And we saw that probably in Super Bowl 36.
Yes. Well, Yes. Okay, this is great. I'm so glad you're going here, okay? This is where I want to go.
I have no idea what you
The
guys
Patriots. He's talking about the Patriots, okay?
yeah.
And cross the line a little bit. So no, this is where I wanted to go with this interview. I'm so glad he is directing
As an
me here.
Eagles fan, I'm excited about this too. Let's
Right.
get him.
I
It's
work
facts,
for I
man.
work for the
Facts.
Patriots. Okay. All right. So first of all, this is the first thing I'm gonna ask. On a weekly basis or a yearly basis, what do you think about more, the Super Bowl win or the Super Bowl loss?
Oh, the loss, man.
Right, of course,
It's
okay.
Obviously, the loss.
I try to explain that to viewers all the
Yeah.
time because losses are always what athletes think about,
Yeah.
and we always have this conversation. All right. Other thing is, I played against the Patriots too. I worked up there too when my career was over. Now Belichick's amazing, so don't get me wrong.
Oh, absolutely.
But when I played against him in 2005, we were a playoff team for the Bucs, and man, I mean, yeah, I had moments in that game where I was like, shit, they know the play we're running. They know my check. Like, they literally know what I'm checking. Teddy Bruschi was like, oh, they're going there. And, like,
Yes.
all 7 were like, yep, you're right, he's going there.
Yes.
And I wanted to be like, fuck, were they in the huddle with me? So go ahead. How do you feel about them? Did you have moments during that game now that you look back at it and go, damn, they knew what we were doing in some of these formations or what we were doing?
Up to that game, up to that point,
Right.
no one
touched you.
No one had anticipated what we were doing.
Yeah.
As far as where we were going, where the ball was going,
Right.
or if we were going to start with the run and really hammer you with the pass.
Right.
No one had did that. So for guys to be
All over
sitting
that.
right there waiting on me,
Right.
sitting right there waiting on T. Hope,
Yes.
sitting there waiting on Marshall to do what we normally do.
Yes.
Something was going
It's
on,
fishy,
man.
right. I
Make
hear
me
you.
scratch your head. I know we turned the ball over a couple of times, but
So when you, T.
Right,
Holt,
right.
Marshall are talking or whatever, it has to come up and you're like, yo, fuck those motherfuckers.
well, you know what? It's like they won the game.
Yeah.
I've never watched the film,
Yeah.
but
Still.
no, I've never watched it. I don't have any interest in
Yeah.
watching it. But just and then when everything comes out,
I know.
when it comes out, you kind of say, you
You
serious?
question it, right?
Because I remember for the Eagles, we were questioning because it was like, oh, they like watched pregame or something like that. And then the Rams, wasn't it like they were in the stadium or something like that during like walkthrough or
the
something?
talk is yes, they were filming the walkthrough the day before the game.
But
right.
TMZ wasn't around then.
Right.
Everything that's
Ooh,
come
you're
out.
right.
TMZ always puts it out, but we've never seen that tape. man.
Yeah, no,
That's
I know.
interesting, right?
It is interesting. Listen, I get it, and I have the same questions having played against them. I also will say that having worked there, I've never seen an organization be so detailed in the way they break teams down too. But trust me, I get you 100%.
Is there, I mean, that was the birth of Tom Brady. What is it like to see him? Does any of that residue come back?
Well, in that game, we ended up tying the game, got the game tied,
Ricky Prohl.
and then
Super
rock
Bowl
and
was
roll Ricky Prohl,
amazing.
man. It was awesome in New Orleans, but ended up tying up the game, and Brady comes back on the field, leads them down, set them up for a vintage field goal. But at the same time, I really wanted that game. Sitting here now, and I'm like, man, I wish we had won that game.
Yeah, because that could have been dynasty
absolutely
for
with,
you guys.
Especially with Brady's success right now.
Right.
I could have sat back and put my feet on the couch and said, yeah.
yeah, I
beat
took
dude.
that down.
Yeah, I got
Right.
him.
I hear you.
But it's incredible because the Kurt story was so romantic. Here's
was.
this Iowa grocery bagger that comes out when Trent Green was people do not realize how big of a free agent signing Trent Green was.
It was huge.
That was, and then when he went down, the emotions on Dick Vermeil's face and the team, and for Kurt having this romantic story to be beaten by the 6th round, 199th Tom Brady, it was like the passing of the torch almost from like the romantic QB to the next one.
A little bit too soon, though.
I agree.
For my liking.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what happened.
I just remember like Teddy Bruschi like slamming Marshall Falk into the ground like away from the play and like never being called and
Yeah,
stuff
that was
like
the
that.
Willie McGinnis. Yeah,
Willie McGinnis,
You're right.
yeah.
All right, that's where last time I'm going to make this statement for you too because you do deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, okay? And whether people don't think you deserve to be whatever, your numbers justify it. But this is the other thing that I'm going to say justify it. I mean, forget that you were an awesome football player, and that justifies it as well. But Kurt Warner's in the Hall of Fame, and I'm just going to say this. Listen, Kurt Warner's really good. I'm not trying to take anything away from him.
Okay.
But I look at that team and that offense, and I go, shit, you guys made Kurt Warner more than he made you guys. I would just like that to be out there. I'm going to say that. You don't even have to comment on that, okay?
You could,
I'm
though,
just
if you
gonna
want
say.
to.
No,
I can, right? If I
you
want.
can.
But I'm
Yeah.
just going to say that.
Are you saying we were already made men before we
I'm
got
just
there?
saying there's a lot of quarterbacks you could have put in that offense, and they would have put up incredible numbers, and they still would have called it the greatest show on turf.
You
So
already
that's
went
all
through
I'm
it.
saying. I'm
Marshall
just saying that
Falk,
for Isaac Bruce.
you,
I appreciate you,
Yeah.
man. Thank
Torrey
you.
Holt, Ricky Prohl,
Right.
Azahir Hakim,
Right.
Orlando Pace,
An offense that really nobody had ever seen to that degree. It was a special
and now
offense.
is the norm.
Well, just imagine how great it would have been had Trent played.
Yeah, right.
Trent was coming from Washington with Coach Martz, so
Yes.
he was already wet in that offense
Gotcha.
already.
Right.
So
Yes, I know what you
He would
mean.
have scored 700 points this season.
600. I mean, it was mentioned at the Hall of Fame this summer, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Trent, he was
So
highlighted.
Yeah.
I could tell you want it. It's interesting. You have the Super Bowl ring, and people say, people that don't have a Super Bowl ring, what would you rather have, a Super Bowl ring
Super
or
Bowl
a
ring,
Hall of Fame?
Super Bowl ring.
What does the gold jacket represent to you, though? Why is that the exclamation point?
As far as playing football is concerned, I think it caps a career where, my goals were set to not only make it to Super Bowls and play in Super Bowls, but also to play in Pro Bowls and be one of the best ever. So that
Right.
kind of, in the eyes of other people,
Gotcha.
not just myself, it kind of validates that and just stamps it.
Right.
What was the
Yeah.
age where you're like, I'm really good at this?
It was 22.
So that's after college.
Yeah, it was my second year in the NFL.
And-
Right between my second season starting, in between when I started really manhandling.
The 1,700-yard year.
Yeah, when I was manhandling Todd Light
Right.
and the other guys, Robert Bailey's in the spring.
Right.
And I was like, oh my goodness,
I
I'm
might
running by
be-
these guys now. So
Right.
I was ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have a moment where a coach was like, do you realize how good you can be in this league?
Yeah, Coach Mike Martz, he would tell me that quite a bit, and he tutored me well. He taught me, gave me quarterback eyes. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So he let me know when I was getting the football
Sure.
and what coverage I could expect the football. But at the same time, like I said, I would consider myself the number one decoy in the league. When I had to run to get open for other guys,
Yeah.
I'm doing 100 miles per hour. That was
Yeah.
just my job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right. I know that. Well, that's the tough thing to do when you got other guys on your offense that they want to design plays for. You get to be the guy that, hey, take the safety off the top, run 70 yards down the field, run back to the huddle, please, and then we'll call another route for you.
Right. I mean, that was me. But at the same time, when it was my time to shine, I tell my tight ends, okay, you got to get on your horse here every
Yeah.
time. That's the first thing that all my tight ends that I played with would tell you that I would say
Right,
coming
'cause
out
if you're gonna run like
get
an
on your
in-cut
horse,
or
man.
something off them,
You go
clear that
94,
safety,
there
right.
you go. That's me. Chris.
Is it cool to watch the Rams doing their thing right now?
Oh, absolutely, man. I'm excited.
Especially
I think,
after what it was, like the last
for
few
the last
years.
10?
Yeah.
Oh, it was terrible, man.
Do they still keep you in the loop? Because you're, of course, one of the greatest receivers in the history of the franchise, but it's weird because they're not in the city you played in.
Right.
So do they do a good job of keeping the core together?
They do a really decent job with me being on the East Coast. They moved from the Midwest now. It went from a 2.5-hour flight to a 4 or 5, 6-hour flight for me. But they do a very good job keeping me in the loop. My teammates, they try to bring us back as much as possible. We have alumni weekend.
Yep.
I'm actually going to see in a couple of weeks versus Philadelphia Eagles. Kind of.
Philadelphia
It kind
Eagles.
of humbled them a little bit.
Right.
They're dancing
Bring
on the
them
field
down.
right now. So just say relax. You're still Philadelphia now. You always
What
get
does that
close,
mean?
but you don't really.
Bam!
That
You
is
get the
not-
cheese
That
stick,
crap,
but you don't really
Philadelphia.
bring home the trophy.
That's
man, you know
not.
what I mean?
That's
It
not
took-
the subtitle. It's not Philadelphia Eagles. We always get close.
Well, hey, listen. I mean, Dick Vermeil had an opportunity in 1980, but he didn't get it till he came to the Rams. And
That
this is
NFC
even better.
that NFC Championship game in 2002. That was before the Eagles were like
was
there.
Philadelphia.
It was Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And it was.
Who was I running by? It was Bobby on
Bobby
the corner
Taylor,
and Troy
Troy
Vincent.
Vincent.
Yeah, I was like, come on, you guys ain't got
Well, then
a
let me
chance,
ask you
man.
this: one guy that I think is in your semifinal class is Brian Dawkins.
Yeah.
And what was that face?
I mean, that's what it is, man. I mean,
what do you think of Brian Dawkins?
he was an okay player.
Stop.
He was.
He's like the
I mean,
greatest
he was-
player of all time.
Okay. I mean, you're an Eagles fan. so.
Wait, what do you mean he's okay?
He was okay. He was.
Don't make me hate
he would be around plays and make plays. I got respect for him. He's a Florida guy. I got respect for
Yeah.
him. So,
What was his downside?
he's a Hall of Famer. I give him that.
Okay, but what were his limitations? What
I
did
mean,
you take advantage
you're
of?
talking to a wide receiver.
I'm
and
curious.
he was a safety.
Yeah.
And we
They're
chat
not as fast.
every night.
Oh.
So
Love
I mean,
it.
it doesn't stop because guys retire. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
But,
I hear
we,
it.
we may hug, but and that'll be about it.
Yeah, I'll never forget. It was like 3rd and long or 4th down, and it was a Freddie Mitchell across the middle, and Aeneas Williams knocked it down, and that was the moment where it ended for me. And that was the first of 3 NFC Championship
Guys
games.
were actually leading at halftime.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean,
you
because
were. But we weren't worried at all.
no, of course not. Of
No,
course not.
seriously though. We
Ain't
weren't.
that shit Philadelphia?
Well, the true thing is that was before the Eagles were that that was the first time they went, and I had no expectation of beating you guys.
Yeah, you were ahead of schedule.
Yeah, we were ahead of schedule. You guys were still. That was you trying to get back again and doing it again. But
Andy Reid, awesome coach, man.
Is he?
Awesome, man. I like Andy.
Philadelphia has a weird relationship with him.
Well, I think he's one coach that they shouldn't have let get away.
No, I agree.
I mean, he's very, very
What did you
knowledgeable.
think of Donovan McNabb?
I thought Donovan was a good quarterback, man. He did a lot of things well.
Yeah.
He kept plays alive. I mean,
Yeah.
he's a guy that I could play with. I'd say that.
I'm curious. What do you think about wide receivers in the NFL right now? Who catches your attention?
I spoke about Keenan Allen out San Diego.
He
a
does
guy
not
who's
get enough love.
come back from a shattered knee and come
Hasn't
back and
lost a
play the
step.
way he has. And fierce guy, fierce competitor. I like competitors on the football field.
Yeah, he's smooth as hell like you. He's not as explosive as you. But the thing,
Not many are.
not many are. Yo, that's where I want to go. That's where I actually want to go. Just you too. Like, all right, just growing up.
Yeah.
Even in your career, I mean, you just talked about playing the Vikings in that playoff game. They had Chris Carter and Moss. Right. Who were the guys that you just look back at and you admired, whether you were playing and watching them on film or just growing up that you admired at the receiver position?
Well, I'm from South Florida, and I was a big-time Miami Dolphin fan, and I had three heroes.
Yeah.
And Dan Marino obviously was one. And every time I see him, I still get a picture with him. And, and he's looking at me like, dude, what are you doing, sir?
Right.
But Mark Clayton, Mark Duper,
Yeah.
I mean, those guys raised me as far as football was concerned, and everything that the Miami Hurricanes were doing at that time. I loved seeing those guys, and wanted to get offered a scholarship there, but it didn't happen. But just their confidence as far as football was playing, I enjoyed watching them. And once I got to the league, I had guys like Flipper Anderson. Had an amazing career. I mean, he was
I know. He
fast.
He beat my dad in a playoff
He
game
really
on the
did.
last
No,
play of the game.
classic. He classically beat your dad on that last play.
Yeah,
man.
you remember that play?
Yeah, ran through the tunnel. Oh,
Yes,
sweet,
ran
man. We
through the
talked
tunnel.
about it. That's one of the first things we talked about when I got there. And he'll be in Los Angeles with that game.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
I'm excited to see him. But he was fast. And Jesse Hester, great route runner out of Florida
Right.
State. He taught me really how to get open versus zone. And, obviously when we played the San Francisco 49ers, I love John Taylor.
Yeah.
He's strong,
Yeah.
explosive guy. Wore every pad like Eric Dickerson did.
Right. People don't realize how good he was just because of Jerry.
No, he wasn't. Jerry wasn't there by himself.
Yeah,
I mean,
I know.
John Taylor
was a freak show.
Oh, absolutely,
Right.
man. So I don't think he got enough credit. And another guy that we don't mention, Andre Rison.
Oh, man.
Andre Rison was tough, man. I mean, with everything he had going on off the field,
Right.
to have the production that he had on the field, just
Yeah.
imagine if he was a focused guy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He'd be explosive, man.
Damn, you just made me remember Eric Moulds. Like I remember
Eric Moulds,
Eric
yeah.
Moulds
E.
was great
Moulds,
too.
Yeah, he's good
There's
too.
so many receivers that you look back in time and that like they slip through the cracks. even
Webster
though they were-
Slaughters. I always
Oh.
looked at those guys because I was similar built. You know what I mean? And
Right.
Webster Slaughter, I wanted to be him.
84
you know what I'm
in the
saying?
Browns.
And he didn't care who lined up. I'd see him make Rod Woodson look silly.
Yeah.
You know? So
I could really tell you're a huge football fan. 'Cause
Yeah, I like
you're
football,
like me. Yeah, I could tell you grew up really paying attention. So
That too.
I'm mucho respecto that.
Appreciate it,
I
man.
do.
That
Thank
was
you.
Spanish. Who kind of instilled that in you? Who was like, let's watch?
I grew up in South Florida. I mean, my
it's
older
just
brother
religion down
and
there.
football is just huge.
The
I mean,
Florida
it's-
boys.
and you want a good college team, you go recruit South Florida.
Uh-huh.
And that's what you do. So we have it. I had it in my family. We played all year round. I mean, with the weather. So we were able to go out front, go out back, and just play for our sports teams. And it was just instilled at us at a young age.
Oh, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I was just to say that I think that's something that's just like cool. That I was in this conversation with somebody yesterday. I mean, Florida is the most talented state in the country. I don't
It's
think it
Florida,
always.
Texas, and California.
I do it. I think
But the
Florida,
gap between Texas and Florida is
I
like,
agree. That's
it's
what I was
really
going to say.
wide, man.
I do. It doesn't have the greatest publicity because they don't have, the show and Odessa Permian
Yes.
and all that crap, Friday Night Lights. But nobody can compete with Florida, and especially South Florida, like he's saying.
I was going to say
Absolutely.
There's
South Florida.
professionals on every high school team
Yes.
almost.
There's
Yes.
that, and I also think guys from Florida play harder and nastier.
They
than
like
the
the
other
lights.
places.
They like
do.
the lights.
Yes.
They're not afraid of it. I feel like Texas, they're used to the lights, but they don't crave them.
Florida, you're
Florida,
right.
it's like
Showtime.
medicine.
The lights are on.
They're-
Let's go.
Florida players are planning to show you up.
Right.
They're gonna tell you what they're gonna do to you, and then celebrate it right there in your face. And that's the way we were brought up.
What high school did you go to?
The University of Dillard.
Dillard, the university. Because I played, of course, when I was on Tampa, this is another thing just to qualify South Florida football. Miami Northwestern.
Yeah.
We had 5 guys from that high school on our
From the
Tampa
West.
team.
You got to call it the West.
The West, is that what they
that's
say?
What they
The
call it, yeah.
West. I mean,
That's where Teddy
yes.
Bridgewater went too.
Yes,
right.
and Geno Smith, who's starting for the Giants this week. It's unbelievable. If you
Yeah.
look at the alumni there, they almost could have their own Hall of Fame
true,
team.
man.
It's
It's true.
unreal.
You're right. Dawkins is from Florida.
He is a Florida
Damn.
guy. I
They're
mean,
all
like,
from
Like
there.
I say, man, you look at what's happening now in college. Clemson,
Yeah.
all Florida guys.
Yeah, they
a lot
got
of
a lot
Florida.
of
That's
Florida
another
kids.
state.
Alabama,
South
Auburn.
Carolina produces
deep.
a lot.
Yeah.
Like I know Clowney was from there, and a bunch of those guys.
Yeah.
Cornerbacks. You already said Aeneas Williams. Dre Bly. You had him. I mean, I could just go through all.
Oh,
these
me and
teams.
Dre, we used to when I played for the Broncos, we'd play some poker together.
Oh, that's him.
Oh, that I know.
All
it's,
day,
yeah.
all day. The
Yeah.
entire flight to and back.
Oh,
so,
he was a fiend for
Oh,
it.
my
But we had
goodness.
a lot of good times together. And then
Yeah.
you know every
taking
now and then,
Lamont Jordan's money.
well, he'd lose, and then he, you know, it would always happen is we'd all lose at some point.
Right. It's poker.
And like he'd lose a big chunk over like a 2-week span. You wouldn't see him for like 5 weeks. And I went through the same thing where I'd be like, hey, I'm the man at this gambling stuff, and then I'd lose a bunch of money and wouldn't
was
be
that
around.
going on like plane flights back then?
when wasn't it going on? I mean,
What was the game?
It was even worse then. That crew, their time, they didn't have to worry about anything. They didn't have
That's
to worry
true.
about Twitter and phone pictures.
So was it
and-
like AC Doocy? Was it
I
poker?
think it was Tunk.
Oh, Tonk, yeah.
And
spades? What are we talking?
Oh man, what is it? It was one other game. I remember when I leave, but
So
Yeah.
he told a story recently about Keyshawn losing how much on a flight?
29 grand on ACDC.
Did you ever see like a
to
big?
Corey Ivy? if
Oh,
anybody
Corey
remembers.
Ivy.
Yes.
former
Remember Corey?
teammate of mine. Yeah.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
I figured.
Man,
Yep.
Yeah.
did you ever see like a big hand go down?
I seen a couple big hands, especially my rookie year. My second year, I saw a lot of big hands. I think the biggest one I saw was 15 grand. I won't call names. So, but
Why not?
I mean, their wives probably didn't know about it. So,
Yeah, but
That's a
they have a deck now. They got it.
but I've never seen it. It never exploded. Fortunately, on
Right.
the plane where they got in.
I can imagine how it would.
I mean, you got
15 grand?
millionaires
Yes.
fighting over 15 grand. So
Yeah, it's true.
It is. It's bragging
about
rights.
respect,
it's
man,
everything.
you know.
It is exactly.
Do you
Screw
look around the
money.
league right now and go, wow, the entire league has adopted the philosophy that we brought in the early 2000s, late 90s?
the teams that are trying to throw it around right now, I can see a lot of what we were doing. I think the only thing that some of them don't have is 28 in the backfield. We could just go
Yeah.
2 tights, 3 tights, and just give
hard
it
to
to them,
match
man. And you can't. What can you do?
Right.
So.
Then he'd split out, and then you go,
Oh,
what the
man.
hell
Right.
we do now? Right.
And,
yeah.
and it's tough. It's tough to carry. It's really tough to I run into coordinators. We talk a little bit, and I'm like, how's it going? And well, man, we're still trying to create what you guys had. I mean,
Yeah.
they're seriously honest about that. So
Right.
I think a lot of people really respected what we had.
Hold on, at its root,
Yeah.
what was it that you guys did that other teams weren't doing? Like, what principle were you doing that really hadn't been seen?
Well, Coach Martz would say, publicly, I don't know if we were the fastest team, but we play the fastest. I mean, it could have been on the turf, but when we went other places on grass, we were still moving around pretty fast. We move around at a very high pace, and we could, like I said, we could throw to run really well, and then we can run the throw really well. So
And when you threw,
Just so
you threw for
versatile.
gashes. It
Absolutely.
wasn't like
We
we were trying to
chunk
throw the
plays.
bubble screen
No,
for,
no, no. See,
Archie
I don't
Cruz.
respect that much, man. I don't like
that's
that
what
too
bothers
much,
me
you know?
about
This is what I'm learning.
I drive
When
crazy.
His dad, everyone that we talk to, when we start talking about how prevalent the screen game is in today's NFL, everyone just goes, I don't like this. It feels fake.
It works, but when it doesn't work,
Yeah.
I mean, it's bad. I mean, and then
I think it's fake stats too, and it's really being taken away a little bit right now. But
it's like a long handoff.
I was going to
doubt,
say, it should be
Yes.
considered a running play.
It should be, especially if it's behind the line of scrimmage, because it's easy to get 100 catches.
Right, they
know,
don't-
I'm not a catch guy. I'm a yards guy.
Got
you know what I'm
you.
saying? And I like to
Yes.
get down the field.
I agree.
And I like to run my 20-yard
Whoever's
ends.
giving your Hall of Fame speech should use that line. Why are you catch guys, be yards guys?
Well,
Right?
I'll
or
tell you what,
average guys.
when you look at the all-time leading rusher of the National Football League, what's the first thing you look at? You
yeah,
look
his
at
yards
his
per
yards,
carry,
right?
right.
Not his carries.
Oh, but you're right. Yeah.
You know
you're
what I'm
right.
saying? You don't look at his carries
Yeah.
because they could give it to him 35 times.
Exactly.
You know what
I
I'm
look
saying?
at Jim Brown because he had 5 yards per carry.
Thank
I
you.
mean, yes.
And
Jamal
that's
Charles.
same thing for
Yeah.
a receiver. If you have yards and yards per catch,
Right.
that's the first down. Mine's 14.9. So
Yes.
it's the first
Damn.
down plus 4.
Yes.
Damn, you're getting
That's
one and a
big,
half
man.
first downs every play.
That's the thing, you know.
Damn.
Last thing I want to ask you for sure is just you were a part. So this is another thing where I think people got to respect what you did, because you were a part of the NFL when the DB could still punch you when you were 20 yards down the field, and he'd grab you and pull you because the ball was in the air, right? So now actually this year I think they're actually being a little more fair and letting defenders have a little contact. But when you were playing and they changed that rule, I mean, was it just so apparent to you right away there? Like, what was that, like, 2003, 2004, where they finally started to say you can't be as physical downfield?
Well, you know what? I think they kind of, they have certain aspects of the game that they're going to highlight, and they show it to you in the summertime, and then that entire season they call it.
Right.
The entire regular season they call it. Then when it gets postseason, they don't call it anymore.
No,
but,
you're right.
I played in an era where the defensive back could hold and keep his hands on you, and they can take headshots.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Try to get you out of the game. So it's changed a lot. Now, I'm an offensive guy, but I feel bad for the defense.
Yeah.
Because, the game is really about getting the offense points.
Yeah, touch him with a fingernail. It's pass interference.
A quarterback. Don't get me started with a quarterback.
Oh, I get you. It's ridiculous, right?
They've trained quarterbacks to, like, when they get tackled,
look at the
his
ref.
eyes automatically look at the referee.
I got hit too.
Did you guys see what happened to Cam Newton against the Jets? End of the game, gets pushed down by a defensive lineman. The ref has his hand on the flag. Cam looks at him, puts his arm out. Flag comes out. Cam turns his head and smiles. And that sealed the game.
I don't like
they
that.
were running out the clock. And that, they are
well,
the
if
most
anybody deserves a makeup call, it's Cam at quarterback. Okay, I'll say that. He's the one guy that they haven't called it fairly for at the quarterback.
He is treated like Shaq,
He gets
where
hit.
they just don't call
or LeBron,
fouls all the
like
time.
he's too big to be hurt. We're gonna let them hit him like that.
Who impresses you today?
As far as
Oh, you already said Keenan Allen.
Yeah.
We were having a debate earlier this week about Antonio Brown and Julio Jones.
Okay.
One has the physical tools. One is just incredible body control. What do you respect about each of those guys?
well, I'd have to say about Brown. I mean, he can start and stop with the best of them.
Yeah.
I mean, even with the ball in his hand, he doesn't change speed. He's tough. He can make the tough catch. He proved that a couple years ago.
Oh,
you know,
man.
with that playoff. When he reached across.
I
was really impressed
He's
with
fearless. You did the Baltimore game on Christmas last year when he got on the 1 yard line and was getting killed and reached over.
Another thing, he's a Florida guy too, so you got to throw that in. I mean, we're not hard to stand out. We stand out a whole lot, but what I like about Julio, when they focus on getting him the football, and I'm not a real big Matt Ryan fan at all.
Welcome to the club.
When they focus on getting him the football, he makes things happen.
Yeah.
And when they get to the point where they really want to win a championship and get him a consistent help on the other side, that's when it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Why aren't you a big Matt Ryan fan? We have our own druthers.
Well, I think the moment swallows him up, and he's shown it at times. And
he's one of the most overrated great quarterbacks I've seen. That's what I would
he's
say.
great.
He's real good.
He's
Don't
really
get me
good.
wrong, but he's had phenomenal talent around him his whole career. You got to remember, he was the number 3 pick in a year where the team was really good. But the coach left town, and Michael Vick dog thing happened, and they ended up falling apart that year. And the team was really good to begin with.
And he had Michael Turner,
and then he
Roddy
got to
White.
take over a team that was really a playoff caliber football team. And then his second year, they traded for Julio Jones in the draft, and they got that around him too. So that's just my
sound like you've studied this.
Yeah, I have. Yes, right.
Well, Matt Ryan's been an interesting case for us. A lot of fans get very upset with us because we don't give him a lot of credit.
Oh. The proof is in the pudding. You got to prove it on the football field.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. You can do regular season.
I know, but I've said the last thing like 3 times.
You don't have to say that.
I know. I don't know why, because I feel like we got to let the guy go at some point. But so I have a man crush right now in the Jacksonville Jaguars defense.
Okay.
I don't know how much you've seen them. Like this is my notes from like the Jags-Cardinals game yesterday.
Wow.
So I watched the film and I write it down. But like, have you seen watch Jalen Ramsey and some? I know he's not a Florida boy, but he went to Florida State at least.
True.
They're just unreal to me right now when I watch them on the defensive side of the ball.
The Rams played them earlier in the season. I
Yes.
flew up for the game, and I thought they really get after the quarterback.
Right.
Really good.
Right.
Man. And a testament to Sean McVay as far as slowing them down a little bit with his creativity
and things,
that type of stuff.
Yeah.
But as a whole, they get after the quarterback,
do, right?
and they have about probably 3 ball hawks in the defensive backfield, guys who are looking for big time plays, interceptions, and try to get to the end zone. So got a lot of respect, man. I think the offense is going to have to catch up with them.
All right.
For them to be dangerous.
Yeah,
they're not going to catch up.
Talk
'cause
about
the
Blake
quarterback.
Bortles.
Don't even talk about
He's
it.
the worst.
Don't talk about it. All right, give me who's going to the Super Bowl.
I was going to ask that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, I mean, I can never not say that the Rams aren't going as long as they are still in it mathematically. So
Yes.
I'm going to hang with that. You know, that's my ticket to the game. So,
I think you can get a ticket no matter what.
but I tell you what, I like what they're doing. I'm really waiting to see what happens versus Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And
That'll be a
that's
big
going to be a
test for
good game. And I think either one of those two or Minnesota could end up representing the NFC in that in the Super Bowl. But on the other side, man, you have the usual suspects.
I know.
Unfortunately, but you know, I'm sure they don't care. But you know, you got the Patriots. I think the Patriots could end up being in it again.
Yeah, right. They're gonna be in it. I just don't see how that Pittsburgh zone defense can cover them all game long. And Tom's gonna pick that apart.
Yeah.
And who's your MVP right now?
MVP of the league? Well, you know, personally, I always think that you should have who's the best quarterback of the league award.
Yes.
Because they always shine a light on the quarterback
no
as far as
doubt.
the best. And I think, you know, I mean, Dak Prescott, he proved that you need your offensive line and your running game.
Right.
Remove Big Tyron, you see what happens.
It's an issue.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'd have to say, you know, I don't know. Who else can I say? You know,
Ours, the three quarterbacks that we're
anything
down
on
to
defense?
is Brady, Wentz, and Russell Wilson. Those are the three guys that we're saying.
But you're right. The quarterback gets way too much credit for all that crap. I'm going to pull up just the stats if you just want
I
to
think
see.
Antonio Brown's
Antonio's,
up
of course,
there.
leading the NFL in receiving.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
I would say Calais Campbell gets most of the props for Jaguars in terms of that defense.
it's not a great year. It's actually a year that maybe actually justifies the quarterback completely because there's no great running back that's just absolutely
Alvin
tearing it
Kamara.
apart.
Now, if I had to give it to a position player, I could say on Antonio Brown.
Yeah.
I mean, he's what he's
It's
doing is
been
pretty
unreal.
tremendous, man.
Unreal.
It's awesome. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we appreciate you coming and hanging.
Thanks
man.
for having me.
We really appreciate
Yes.
it. Hall of
Enjoyed it.
Famer
Thank you, sir.
Isaac Bruce,
Thank
man.
You. Thank you.
It'll be coming out in the next few weeks as this process goes down. And just remember, as you go and you talk with your friends or you're on the Twitter and you're giving your opinion, this is a kind of guy that has shattered record books. He was there before The Greatest Show on Turf. He was featured in The Greatest Show on Turf. And he is someone that I do not believe will be passed for a very long time. His name is Isaac Bruce. His number is 80.
And he put the nail in the coffin in Super Bowl 34, so he's a winner, too.
Absolutely.
He's a winner, too. Isaac Bruce, you are the man,
Thank you,
my
sir.
friend.
Appreciate
I
it.
appreciate you.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, guys. Sims and Lefkoe. Hope you enjoyed it. Hit us up on Instagram at Sims and Lefkoe for Sims.
Peace out, homies.
Fendrick would say good evening. Isaac Bruce says,
Shalom.
ooh. And the Lefkoe
Man.
says good night. We'll talk to you later. Shalom.